Massive online backlash over Voices of April viral videos. Falling stocks and foreign exchange rates in China. Massive layoffs in China's internet industry. Leaked Beijing memo. Hello, and welcome to Sound of Hope. My name is Daniela Wolensack, and today it's April 29th. Voices of April is the title of a 6-minute video that chronicles the Shanghai lockdown. After being censored, Voices of April became a hashtag, and users have continued to find creative ways to share it. The popular video was presented without commentary and was shot mostly in black and white. We hear shouts of residents demanding basic necessities, separated babies crying in quarantine facilities, mothers of sick children calling out desperately for medicine, and pet owners in tears after workers in hazmat suits killed their dogs. The video maker posted a short message on Friday. A month into the outbreak of the epidemic in Shanghai, I've seen many people speaking out online, but most of them disappeared after a short while. And then, however, some things should not have happened, and they should not be forgotten. Censoring the video provoked online creativity. Users posted the video upside down, embedded it in cartoon clips, and even circulated it through QR codes and cloud services. Discontent over the censorship reminded many of the public outcry 2 years ago, following the death of Li Wenliang, the Wuhan doctor who was punished for trying to warn the world about the coronavirus. One WeChat user wrote, "The CCP is still trying to gag our mouths and plug our ears." Another replied, "The best way to make videos go viral is by censoring them." Mary Kissel, the former senior advisor to U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, commented on Twitter, "Remember, this is the next time you hear that the Chinese people are content with corrupt, brutish, and incompetent communist rulers. Far from it." Shu Liren, a Bloomberg opinion columnist, said, "China's censorship is on overdrive, blocking hundreds of links to videos and articles documenting the Shanghai lockdown. Shanghai is not Xi'an or Jilin province. We will not be silenced." The online protest is the latest sign of the dissatisfaction with the strict zero COVID-19 strategy. China's economy has been severely impacted by the Xi Jinping government's stringent sequestration measures. This week, China's stocks and exchange rates fell as the capital voted with its feet to express its dissatisfaction with the Chinese Communist Party's policies. The Communist Party's epidemic control measures have led to supply chain disruptions and factory shutdowns. Now, before Shanghai is even released, China's market is in a state of panic, with foreign investors pulling out in large numbers, and Hong Kong and Chinese capital lying flat, as China's stocks and foreign exchange rates fall. Last week, the yuan fell through 6.4 and 6.5 against the dollar, and this Monday it fell through 6.6. China's stock market is also down, with the CSI 300 index falling 5.7% this week, hitting a 2-year low. The Hang Seng index has given back more than half of its gains since the mid-March low. China's large and mid-cap stocks have fallen nearly 20% so far this year, making A-shares the world's worst-performing stocks after Russia. To stop the flee of capital, Chinese officials have made a series of new statements. The Communist Party's Foreign Exchange Bureau claims that renminbi assets still have long-term investment value. The central bank announced on Monday that it will lower the reserve requirements ratio for foreign exchange deposits of banks. Some commercial banks under the central bank are already quietly cutting interest rates. Sources said that the Bank of China will cut the interest rate on 2 to 3 year deposits by about 10 basis points. Usually, news of rate cuts and interest rate reductions are good for the stock market, but the CCP's stimulus policies and talk of trusting the market have failed to stop the flee of capital. Foreign investors sold 7.1 billion in Chinese stocks in March and continued to sell more than 1 billion since April. And last month, international holdings of Chinese bonds fell by a record 15 billion. Analysts at several domestic securities firms said in a report that anti-epidemic restrictions have become the biggest threat to China's economy. These restrictions may do more damage in the second quarter than they did in the first. Experienced investors said that the lockdown in Shanghai has not yet been lifted, and the market is worried that Beijing will be locked down soon. Foreign investors are panicking and are likely to disperse. Global investors are increasingly worried about the political and economic uncertainty in China under the communist regime. Many internet CEOs have retired in mainland China in recent years. Since March, the major Chinese internet companies have experienced the fiercest tsunami-like layoffs in history. The Jingdong Group, also known as Jday.com, is one of the biggest internet brands in the Chinese e-commerce industry. Recently, one of its employees posted on Maimai, China's workplace social platform, 10 years of dedication to JD.com resulted in a piece of paper stating graduation. The employee said that on March 31st, he was suddenly asked to sign a notice of termination of labor contract. He was terminated on the same day, and his access card was deactivated. On March 29th, the massive layoffs of the Jingdong Group became a hot search entry. Many anonymous people claiming to be Jday.com employees broke the news that the company's human resources department had forced employees to leave voluntarily, stating underperformance as the reason. According to reports, JD.com's Jingxi Business Group, which includes JD.com International, JD.com Retail, JD.com Logistics, and JD.com Technology, have all set layoff quotas, most of which are between 10% and 30%. In early April, a widespread report stated that many laid-off employees were required to process their resignation in the JD headquarters that day. It is estimated that more than 1,000 people left in a single day. On the 23rd, Dr. Shen Rongqing from the INSEAD told Epoch Times that since last year, the CCP has strictly controlled the internet, and large internet companies are generally subject to significant restrictions. Additionally, the Chinese authorities are continuing the infamous zero COVID-19 policy, which dramatically affects China's supply chain. According to inside sources, Alibaba and Tencent laid off tens of thousands of employees in February. Overall, Alibaba will lay off at least 15% of its employees, or about 39,000 people. Youzhen WeChat, a company said to offer online sales to 6 million merchants, has laid off nearly 2,000 people. As of the 22nd, the stock prices of Alibaba, Tencent, and Jday.com listed in Hong Kong have fallen by 60%, 45%, and 30% respectively in the past year. On April 27th, a copy of an internal meeting on the Beijing academic was circulating the internet. The document is titled 2022-425 Epidemic Communication Memo. It is a speech given by the Vice President of Beijing Ditan Hospital. The document starts by discussing the new COVID variant, stating that most people have very mild symptoms, that the threat of Omicron lung infection is minimal, and that many elderly people have no lung shadow on CT. It then talks about when China will be able to open. The director said that first, several conditions must be met. One is the availability of drugs, which is estimated to be inadequate for 6 months. The second is that 80% of the elderly must be vaccinated, which can be accomplished in 6 months. The third is the availability of isolation beds. The fourth is the capability of ICU treatment, which is impossible in the short term because it takes 5 years to train an ICU doctor. And the fifth is the adjustment of public opinion, as currently people are too afraid of the virus. When the above conditions are met, the hospital can gradually be opened. The 20th Congress of the Communist Party of China will be held in about 6 months. In this expert's opinion, the whole country should be in lockdown until the 20th Congress finishes. The third topic is what caused the plight of Shanghai. The expert states that the epidemic in Beijing is less problematic because Beijing is loyal to Xi, the current head of the CCP, whereas Shanghai has a different affiliation. The fifth topic of the meeting exposed an important detail. This topic centered on the current epidemic in Beijing, and the expert said that in general, he is not too worried about Beijing. The country's strictest measures, which include harsh isolation, are in Xinjiang, and Beijing will implement those measures if needed. The authenticity of this memo is doubtful, as it was not published officially, but the outside world has noticed that during Xi Jinping's visit to Renmin University on April 25th, he and the people around him wore no masks. This relaxed attitude of the top tier raises the question, do they have inside information on Omicron? If so, then why is there a need for fierce closure and screening in Beijing? Thanks for listening in, and remember to like, comment, and subscribe.